Welcome to the University of New England Varsity Club Athletics Hall of Fame and our first official event of Homecoming 2022. So welcome home, everyone. Athletics, teams, games have played a special role in UNE from its very foundation of St. Francis College. It really takes a special kind of person who can be a Division III athlete, because you play for the love of the game and you play to excel, but you are also excelling in the classrooms, and that takes a special kind of heart and work ethic. And that kind of excellence is what we are here to celebrate tonight, that is present throughout the decades and throughout the legacy of both St. Francis, Westbrook College, and the University of New England. So we have a lot of people to honor tonight, so I want to get this party started by inviting Coach Charlie Birch to the stage.
First of all, congratulations to all the inductees that are going to be honored tonight for all that they've done here in their athletic careers and as well as academic careers. I'm here to speak about Dan Ozier. Dan is the third men's lacrosse player to be inducted into the Hall of Fame here behind Sean Melnick and Tyler Thomas. Dan was in my first recruiting class. Not highly recruited, despite the fact that he was a high school academic All-American, two-year captain of his high school team, and a captain of his basketball team at Nashua South in New Hampshire, as well as having extremely high point totals in lacrosse especially. That fall of 2013, I knew from the second practice of fall ball that Dan was going to be a starter. That was a year that followed a great year the year before, but it was a culture change year. And Dan stepped up and kind of led things even though he was a freshman. And by the end of that year, he was recognized for his leadership by his teammates and was voted to be a captain going into sophomore year. He would become a three-year captain, only the second one in the history of the lacrosse program as far back as I can tell, along with a guy named Matt Anderson from the class of 2012. With his name being all over the offensive record book and his numerous accolades, which are included in the program that's on the table for all of you, there's a couple other things that stand out to me. Dan became the program's first ever, and only one to date, All-American. And also that senior year, he was chosen as a Scholar All-American, which is a rare feat indeed for an athlete to be recognized for in both those categories. Another couple stats from Dan's career that stand out that aren't in the program are his ground ball stats. Attackmen in lacrosse aren't usually known for being great ground ball guys on the team. Usually face-off guys and long stick midfielders lead their team in ground ball stats. But Dan had 42 in 2014, 44 in 2015, led the entire team by more than 25 ground balls in 2016 when he had 82, to go along with 13 caused turnovers, which is somewhat of another rare feat for an attackman. And in his senior year, he settled back in at 49 ground balls for a career total of 217. That number, to me, explains the type of gritty, tough player that Dan was for his entire career here. Another fact that that I liked, that Dan also had two 10-point games in his career, of mixed a little bit. An 8-goal, a 2-goal, 8-assist performance against Southern Maine when he was a junior, and a 10-point game against Curry his senior year when he had 4 goals on 5 shots and 6 assists. Another stat that's noteworthy about Dan is his career penalties. His freshman year he had 3, sophomore year he had 2, and junior year he had 1. So you can probably see where I'm going with this one. In his senior year, up until the Curry game, which was our last regular season game before playoffs, Dan was penalty-free. We were playing down at Curry in a warm downpour. Dan was having his 10-point performance in a game that we'd eventually win 22-8. But Curry was taking their frustrations out on us with their sticks and their bodies, and I didn't feel that the refs were doing much about it. I've been giving them an earful all night long. With under a minute to go in the third quarter, Dan was chasing the Curry defender trying to clear the ball. As the kid crossed the midline, Dan gave him a light love tap, kind of check on his back shoulder. Never should have been a penalty, but the ref threw the flag anyway, looked at me and said, "Now will you shut up?" So in Dan's senior year, his one and only penalty when he was trying to get to zero was really on me and not on him. One of my favorite game memories of Dan's, and there were almost too many to count, was of the Colby game during his senior year. We were down 7-5 entering the fourth quarter, and a couple things in that fourth quarter happened that showed that this wasn't completely Dan's show out there, like Sean Conger going 4-0 on faceoffs in the fourth quarter, but Colby took a penalty about a minute into the quarter. And Dan normally is a guy that played behind the goal for us, kind of quarterbacking our offense from behind. But in our man-up offense that year, he played in the top middle spot in a 3-3 offense and kind of quarterback things from up there. Apparently, Colby, in their scout, thought that Dan was only an assist guy and not a scorer. So without much pressure on him, ball went around the horn once. Dan stepped in and rifled a shot over the goalie's shoulder to bring us within 1 point. Score stayed the same for about the next 7 or 8 minutes, and then Colby took another penalty with about 4 minutes to go. Same offensive set, and again, they didn't pressure out on Dan, and he stepped in and tied the game with another rocket right over the goalie's shoulder. A minute or so later, Andy Curro, who's also here tonight, dodged through the entire Colby defense and won the game for us, and that's what a lot of people remember. But Dan set us up with 2 goals to get us to that point. And the last anecdote I'd like to share before bringing Dan up here in a minute to speak is one anomaly in his career stats. Dan played 71 games in his career, but only started 70 of those. Remember I said I knew it early on in his freshman fall ball season that he was going to be a starter. Our spring trip that year, we went to Baltimore, and as we arrived in Baltimore, we got hit with about a 5-inch snowstorm, nothing up here, but to Baltimore that shut the whole city down. They don't plow their fields, they don't plow their streets, so we were locked into the hotel for about 36 hours while we tried to find a place to be able to play Western Connecticut, who we were down there to play. I called a team meeting for 2 o'clock to try to bring the guys up to speed and what was going on, and everybody was there except Dan and Andy Curro. Turns out they thought it was a 3 o'clock meeting and not 2, and they were off playing video games in their room, innocently enough. But as we were still working on the culture change, I decided to bench them both. So Dan's only non-start in his 71-game career came as a result of innocent miscommunication, and he was singled out for that. Probably poor decision on my part at that point. I'd now like to bring up one of the greatest players and people I've ever met that the lacrosse program here at UNE has ever produced. In May, I had the privilege of calling Dan to tell him he'd been selected for induction as a first ballot Hall of Famer, and this followed shortly on the heels of Dan graduating from med school here at UNE and having recently gotten married. I'd say that's one of the best months a person could ever have. It's my pleasure to introduce Dan Ozier, UNE class of 2017 and 22 inductee into the Hall of Fame.
All right, I need to pull up my notes for this. Thank you, Coach Birch. I really appreciate the kind words. So like you said, I am recently married, so it'd be silly of me to not first thank my wife. I'm trying to get off on a good start here. So not just for athletics, but for how much she's done for me every day through undergrad, med school, and now into residency. She's just been my rock throughout all of this, so I really appreciate that, Anna. I won't cry. And for some reason, she likes me enough to come and live with me in Columbus, Ohio, and make a life out there. So I won't question it, but thank you very much, Anna. And I actually owe UNE the fortune of meeting Anna. She graduated the same year that I did, for those that don't know her. It was actually a stud on the soccer field. So thank you very much, UNE. Being back here at UNE, it just feels like home because of all the great people in my life. And to be surrounded by all of them tonight, it's just a really special night. Coach Birch, like you said, I wasn't highly recruited out of high school. For some reason, I thought if I just had one good game in high school, I'd probably go D1. It didn't pan out, but I'm happy how things worked out. And when I was in high school, my mom mentioned, hey, you should go check out University of New England up in Maine. I was like, did you say Maine? There's no way I'm going to school in Maine, Mom. But here I am. So me and my dad went to come meet Coach for a recruiting visit one morning. And Coach met us promptly right at the front door, shook our hand, walked us around the entire campus and spent the whole morning with us. Just an undue amount of respect that Coach demonstrated towards us. That's something I valued very highly. It made a really strong impression on us. We left that day and my dad said, you should really consider going here. And I did. But most importantly, Coach pushed us on the field. Like you said, the culture change we instilled with all the gentlemen that came out tonight. But most importantly, he taught us the value of respect and accountability. There was never a pregame dinner we went to where we didn't push in our chairs at the end of the night, and thank people for what they did. So thank you, Coach. Also, I'd like to thank Coach Richards, Coach Nuge, Coach Baker. You guys really pushed me out of my comfort zone every day, but also made me feel comfortable at the same time. So I really appreciate that and your experience that you brought. To my teammates, all you guys in the room tonight, thanks for coming. Kind of like Coach touched on, I had the fortune of playing a position where, there's a lot of quantifiable stats, like, goals, points, assists, and whatnot. But not everyone plays that position, and I wouldn't get the ball and be able to score or do any of that stuff without you guys. So this induction serves as a symbol of what we created and what we did. This is for us. And, I was proud of our improved record every year and what we did. But what I really loved the most was the Friday night pregame dinners, playing Rocket League at the house, the annual men's lacrosse formal, Secret Santa, and just enjoying each other's presence over a couple of root beer sodas. I'm proud to have you guys as some of my best friends to this day and for a lifetime. Thank you, men. This will be hard to get through. So next I want to talk about my family. So sports have always been a big part of my family. I think it's because it embodies our values so well. Togetherness, unconditional support, grittiness, and certainly love. I'll start with my big brother, Matthew. So just like pretty much everything else I did growing up, I started playing lacrosse in high school because my big brother played lacrosse. Before that, I was a big baseball guy. And he played his college ball over at Southern New Hampshire University, a D2 school over in New Hampshire. And, he was always my role model for kind of getting after it in the gym. In the summer, we'd go right to the gym after work. We did, parks and rec, landscaping jobs in the summer. We'd go to the gym, and then we'd play pickup at least once a week, ride together all the time, and then we'd go get reps in at the turf when we didn't have games that day. And that's what we love to do. It was hard work, but we grinded it out, and it was so enjoyable to have my big brother there with me for all that. Yeah, we love the grind. We love to push each other, and most of all, we love to go home, make a protein shake, and say, "Damn, that sucked." And we didn't need to vocalize the undivided support and the pride that we had for each other. That's just kind of something that's always been in the air between us. So thank you, Matthew. Mom and Dad, I don't know where to start, but we'll start with Mom, because Mom always goes first. So for those of you who haven't had the fortune of meeting my mom, she is the kindest, most sincere, thoughtful person in this world, and I don't take that lightly. Most people say that about their mom, but for my mom, that's true. That's something I'll try to emulate, but I'll never truly match it. You taught me that struggling is not only good, it's the key to development. If you don't feel great in the morning, you're still going to school. And we went to school. You taught me to celebrate every little thing that happens in this life, and that family always comes first. Thank you, Mom. Dad, my dad was always coach. He was the first coach I had. Like I said, basketball, baseball growing up, he was always the guy. That's my role model. He's the guy who said that UNE would be a good fit for you. I said, yeah, maybe. He said, what do you want to study when you go to college? I was like, oh, I like biology. He's like, you should be a doctor. I was like, oh, maybe. And he was right. I listened to him. But one thing I will say, he said, you should be a dermatologist. I'm not a dermatologist. I'm happy to say I chose orthopedics. So just like in my time at UNE, every day in residency, I get humbled, but I also have triumphs. And I want to thank everyone that I just talked about for helping me strike that balance, for making my life truly enjoyable. So I'd like to wrap up with two things I said to my teammates at our final team meeting after our final loss, which was the hardest speech I've ever given to this day, and I can't imagine anything that will top it at any conference or anything like that. The first, reach for goals where you enjoy the struggle and love the process. Number two, and I think most importantly, always look for ways to help your neighbors who are in need, who aren't as fortunate as you, because no one can do it alone. Thank you, everyone.
That was great, Dan. My name is Anthony Ewing. I'm the head women's basketball coach. Last I checked, I'll have to check my mailbox. I'm here to induct Beth Suggs, now Carleton, into the Hall of Fame. This is an extreme honor for me. I know that's easy to say up here, but I really, truly, at my core, feel honored to be part of this for Beth. The only people in the room prouder than me are probably her parents, Smokey and Adele, which, side note, if there was a Hall of Fame for parents, no joke, you two would be in it. Like, best parents ever, came, supported the whole team, always smiles, awesome parents. And also, I cannot say Smokey and Adele without thinking about, like, if I were to start a lounge act, I would name it Smokey and Adele. Like, it's coming to the stage, Smokey and Adele. Like, that just seems right. Hall of Fame, Beth. It'd be easy to stand here and say that this was the path I saw Beth on right from the get-go. It is not. Recruiting Beth, I put this video in of this high school kid, and it didn't scream Hall of Fame. You watch this kid get up and down the floor, though, and I want you to thank your high school teammates for being such gunners. Like, the lessons that taught you, you don't even know. I'm watching this 6-foot kid who can run like a deer and is strong as hell, just run up and down and never touch the ball, ever, unless she went and got it herself. They never passed her the ball, which taught her to be relentless and not be down on herself in any way, and just determination on this kid in high school. It was a no-brainer to recruit her. She was physically gifted, just kept working. You know, to put it in perspective, it's like I thought of her as Dory. You know, just keep swimming, just keep running. Beth, just keep running. She just kept going and rebounding. So she was, again, like Coach Birch said about Dan, under-recruited, to be honest, and we were really lucky to get her. Freshman year, when Beth came, again, you know, very pedestrian freshman year. Like, came in, you know, had some issues, not issues, like struggles. Sometimes Beth was like a giraffe on ice skates. Like, keeping her upright was a struggle sometimes. She fell a lot. She'd fall on people. I was worried about other people getting hurt. But she worked and worked and worked. And there's a point to this. And I do have, from that freshman year, I do remember distinctly down in the campus center, this place wasn't built yet. And Beth would pop her face in on game days and be like, Coach, today's gonna be a great day. And she'd tell me all the great things she was gonna do. And I think she believed it. She was talking it into existence, and I believed it too. Beth kept working from those humble beginnings as a freshman. By the time she was a junior, she was second team all-conference. She was starting every game. She was an integral part of our success, and just kept working. And to quantify her hard work, the teams Beth was on were 94 and 24. I know that says that in your booklet there, but that's extremely good. And her conference record was 57 and 5 in conference games. The kid was a winner. Just watching her go from where she was in high school, just kind of underappreciated, just going to burgeoning into this kind of like impactful, just monster, to be honest. I know I said beast on senior day, but now it's monster, Beth. Her senior year, Beth really just kind of grew into this leader. And if you know Beth, Beth is a pleaser. She's a kind, sweet person. But Beth knew as a senior, she needed to be more of a hardcore kind of leader. She started with 4 freshmen, I believe, her senior year. It was her and 4 freshmen. So she had her work cut out for her. That year, we, I think, set a program record for 20 straight wins. We were 18-0 in league. She was player of the year. She averaged a double-double. She ended up with over 1,100 points. I know it says this in your thing, but she's 3rd all-time in rebounds. Honestly, to this day, I've never coached a player who rebounded out of her zone better than Beth, and you basketball people know what I mean by that. That senior year, we got our very first NCAA win. And Beth was not a passenger in that game. Beth scored 26 points, had 13 rebounds in that W, and which was awesome. And then next day we lost, and Beth's career was over. And I can distinctly remember sitting in the media room with Beth. They're asking us questions, and all I could think about was Beth and how heartbreaking it was that I was never going to coach her ever again, and she was never going to play for me again, and I'm watching tears stream down her face, and that was really hard. I remember that like it was yesterday, but the memory I really remember, the girl who came here to UNE and was a gangly, awkward freshman and couldn't do a whole lot, to go from that to All-American and player of the year in the conference, and just the confidence and just see you grow as a woman and as a human was extraordinary. And I don't think to this day I have a prouder moment in my heart than watching you after our championship, which you won 3 of in your 4 years. They used to have the player of the year walk out and collect their award after the game. And to watch Beth in a packed gym walk out to get her Player of the Year award with the entire gym chanting MVP, just to see shoulders back, head up, the person that she was in that moment, I don't think I've had a more proud moment as a coach or as a person. And I'm honored today to induct Beth Suggs into the Hall of Fame. Beth.
I have my notes too, just because I have to have them. People often ask me if I would do it all over again, if I would spend hours, minutes, and seconds out on the court every day. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't. The impact that the game of basketball has had on my life is irreplaceable. It's not just the coaching staff or the incredible people that you meet along the way. It's the life lessons that you learn and how you implement them after you're done playing. I could stand here and thank everyone that made this possible, but I'm going to do it a little bit different. You see, to play basketball in college is a privilege. It's not for everyone, and it's not to be taken for granted. You don't just earn a spot on the team. There's certain steps that you have to take to get there. Now let me tie my daughter into this. These are the 6 steps that I hope she learns so that one day I can watch her up here doing this exact same thing. Step 1, it starts when you're younger. Get into everything that you can. Believe it or not, dancing actually helps with foot speed and agility. It also teaches you social skills, ones that become very important later on in life, middle school and in high school. Step 2, you want to find yourself a school that fits perfectly. Coming from a small hometown and a small high school, UNE was perfect. You walk on campus and you immediately feel like it's a community. Yes, being part of the basketball team immediately gives you family, but just the campus in general. You learn to know a little bit about everyone on campus and always see a familiar face walking from one class to the next. It's that humbling feeling as soon as you walk on campus that makes it truly feel like home. Step 3, you find yourself a sport where teammates turn into family. Ones that aren't just friends for 4 years, but for a lifetime. That's the epitome of the women's basketball team. I couldn't have done what I did at UNE without the help of my teammates. They pushed me outside of my comfort zone, comforted me when I needed it, and were always there for me. My teammates turned into sisters, and to this day, I stay in contact with most of them. We may not see each other often, but when we get back together, we pick up right where we left off. Like we used to say, Ubuntu, I am who I am because of who we all are. Step 4, find yourself a coach that would do anything for you. One that isn't just a coach, but a mentor. Someone that can do anything and will do anything and give you the advice that you need. When I met Coach Ewing for the first time, I knew he wasn't just an ordinary coach. He was someone that poured his heart and soul into his players. His door was always open, and if you ask him, I was in there a lot. Between classes, practices, and games, I was there. Whether it be to sit and talk, joke around, or give my advice on what practice should look like for that day. Not that he ever listened, but I did try. I've picked up a lot from him as a coach and use it on my team to this day. Even if it is the stare you get when you turn the ball over or mess up a play down the court, I can hear him yelling Bethany in my head as I stare down one of my own players. If it weren't for him and his constant support and push, I wouldn't be up here talking to you right now. He is a huge reason for my success. Step 5, here's where parents come involved. Behind every great athlete are parents who would do anything for them. They sacrifice their own hobbies to support theirs. If this doesn't define my parents, I don't know what will. My parents are who I strive to be as one. They never missed a game. Wherever we were playing, they were there in a heartbeat. Always before tip-off, front and center, so I could look at my dad before the jump and he would sign, "Play with heart." A thank you just isn't enough, and it never will be. Step 6, you find that special someone who supports you in your love for the sport. If it wasn't for my husband, Brian, and his love and support for the game himself, I wouldn't be teaching these steps to my current athletes, and I don't even know if I'd be coaching at the high school level. So, to wrap things up, remember, hold your teammates close as they help you form as a person and a player. Stay in contact with your coach because they'll never know the impact that they put on you in your years at college. And finally, hold your parents close to your heart. They're the reason you are standing up here today. Thank you.
Good evening. I didn't introduce myself earlier, but my name is Amy Hale, and I am the Associate Vice President of Strategic Communications for the Institutional Advancement Office here at UNE. And that is a legit job, and that is not a make-you-up title. But this evening, my honor is to read the induction remarks from my friend, Ron Dubuque. As you can read in your program, Ron graduated with a degree in sociology from St. Francis College in 1971. He was a 4-year starter on the men's soccer team and was named captain his senior year. As a junior, Dubuque was named first team all-conference and first team all-New England, all divisions by National Soccer Coaches Association. He also earned the Red Knights, that's what St. Francis, MVP award that season. In the summer of 1970, Ron joined a group of national all-stars to represent the United States in Europe. After graduation, he stayed involved in athletics as a coach at the youth and high school levels, while managing a successful career at the Waterbury, Connecticut Housing Authority, retiring as executive director in 2012. Now, I would like to share a few things about Ron that are not in your program. As you may have guessed, I neither coached nor played soccer with Ron. However, I have had the distinct pleasure of getting to know him over the last 14 years, and I know that he would be someone I would want on my team. He is deeply dedicated to his teammates, whether they be his lifetime friends from St. Francis, his children, of whom he is tremendously proud, or his wife, Mary Ann, who is joining us electronically this evening. He is loyal to his institutions. His St. Francis College pride is the foundation from which his UNE pride has grown. And if you have seen Ron's UNE golf getup, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are a few alumni who are more committed and generous to the teams, students, and student athletes of the University of New England. Ron believes in the power of athletics from his own experience, from his kids' experiences, and from what he has seen from the Nor'easter experience. And for all these reasons, I welcome Ron Dubuque into the UNE Varsity Club Athletics Hall of Fame.
Thanks so much for the kind words, Amy. I was wondering who was going to introduce me because all my coaches are deceased. First and foremost, my wife, Mary Ann, is recovering from recent surgery, couldn't be here tonight, so she saved me from myself a couple of times along the way. So thank you, Liz. I love you, and I'll see you soon. I would wish to thank the selection committee for their display of extreme wisdom in selecting this year's honorees. Congratulations to all the rest of the honorees, and I couldn't help but notice when leafing through the booklet that for most of you, I have kids older than you. As a matter of fact, most of your parents weren't born when I played at St. Francis College. I have some notes here that I will get through as expediently as possible. SFC was a special place to all us. We came, we saw, we enjoyed, we played, we worked hard, we partied. And it was probably that aspect that brought us all together. We had a camaraderie that is evident in this unity of today. It's a very special place in our hearts, and you've carried on the tradition famously, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as all us alums are concerned. Those people that are dear to your hearts, the friends you make in college, and to George Kudlasik, Tim Lenahan, Dan Regan, John Dijek, Tommy Nichols, Rick Forrest, Bill Lyons, and Bernie O'Hara, thanks for the great times and good memories. And Jim Shaughnessy and Steve Kissinger and I came in as a freshman class. We ended up as tri-captains our senior year, and we joined a nucleus of Bill Feeney, Tony Carula, and Andy Popinchuk that formed a nucleus of success on the soccer field. I didn't go to school. I wasn't going to college. And I'm going to tell you this story because this person is special in my life and is around campus. You'll see his picture. You'll see his name on gyms. You'll see his name in bleacher section, the Beaudry corner. But I wasn't going to college. I came up here one fall in 1966 to visit Tony Carula and Bill Feeney, who were high school teammates of mine. And I loved the place, but it wasn't for me. College wasn't in my immediate future anyway. So I didn't think anything of it. I went home. In January of that year, the principal called me down to his office. And I was a bit of a ne'er-do-well, although a lovable cut-up. And you probably all know those types. They get away with things that you would never get away with. That was me. I always had the twinkle in my eye and the smile on my face, and I could get away with a lot of things, and I did. So I went down to the principal's office, and his secretary and I were pretty good friends. And I said to her, I said, Mrs. L, her name was Mrs. Lukowski. I said, Mrs. L, I said, is this something I should be worried about? And she just looked up and looked right down. I said, oh boy. She would have told me. So I sat there and sweated for a couple of minutes. It seemed like an hour, but door finally opened, and Sumner Libby, who followed me from junior high school to high school, is the principal in both places. It was well aware of my escapades. Said, Ron, come in. So I entered his office, and I immediately saw this guy who I had no idea who he was. He had a gray flannel suit on, a white shirt, a black tie, horn-rimmed glasses, short black hair. I said, it's got to be a detective. Who else would dress like that? So Sumner Libby, the principal, saw that I was nervous, and he had a smirk on his face. To this day, it's emblazoned in my mind. But he says, this is Coach Jim Beaudry from St. Francis College. And I had never met Jim when I was up here practicing with the team. And he said, Ron, we didn't get your application. I said, well, Coach, I didn't fill one out. He said, how come? You don't like the school? I said, no, I love the school. I have two friends up there I played soccer with in high school. You know them, Bill Feeney and Tony Carula. And I said, but college isn't for me. I said, number one, I don't have money for college. He said, don't worry about the money. And he made me fill out the application on that desk that day. And Jim, if you're looking down from heaven, thank you very much. You made a big difference in my life. And that was the beginning of my association with St. Francis College. The only other thing I wanted to say was that the ball gets through 10 players on the pitch, and somebody shoots and scores, and they all look at the goalkeeper. Well, our goalkeeper, Bola Lasher, never let that happen, and he made us all look good. Thank you, Bo. And The last thing I would like to say is that UNE and St. Francis College are bonded in history, and they have the same saying on their paper, on their books, on everything else, and it's lucens et ardens. Ciao.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kurt Smythe. I'm Associate Director of Athletics here at UNE. Tonight's next inductee is Dean Johnson, who graduated in 1986 with a bachelor's degree in history and secondary education. Dean played in 93 games and was a two-year captain for the men's basketball team from 1982 through 1986, and at the time of his graduation was the men's basketball career scoring leader with 1,442 points, and also the program leader in assists with 541. Those totals now stand 11th and 3rd, respectively, in program history. Dean had one of the most impressive senior seasons in UNE basketball history, scoring 40 points in one game and setting a school record with 21 assists in another. He was named an NAIA All-Star that year. After graduation, Dean went on to become an assistant basketball coach here at UNE before taking a position at Caldwell University, where he still works today. As the head softball coach at Caldwell, Dean has amassed an 889 win and 413 loss record to put himself in the top 20 of the winningest NCAA Division II head coaches all time. Dean was inducted into the Caldwell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2019. A 1990 UNE graduate and Hall of Fame member, Jay Corey, had this to say about Dean Johnson. DJ, this is long overdue and a very well-deserved recognition. I wish I could be there with you, but family commitments have kept me home. My freshman year, I randomly picked number 21 for my jersey number. I had no idea what I was getting myself into by picking number 21. I remember Coach Larry Rio saying, "Jay, I see you picked number 21 for your jersey. You know that was DJ's number, right?" He was an excellent point guard who graduated last year. Then, former coach, Hall of Famer and legend Jim Beaudry said, "Jay, so I've heard you're wearing number 21. That was Dean Johnson's number, and you have big shoes to fill, boy." Jay continues to say, "I've been very fortunate to have had many great basketball coaches, but Coach Johnson was at a whole different level of skill and mastery. Dean was not only a great college basketball player, but he took the time to care and to really understand the strengths and weaknesses of not only every player on our team, but also on opposing teams. I feel very blessed to have you in my life and want to thank you for being a mentor, coach, and most importantly, a true and longtime friend." Those are remarks from Jay Corey. And now it's my honor to present to you, for induction, Dean Johnson.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee and congratulate all the Hall of Famers that are inducted tonight. Ron, I think I was happy that you got inducted, so now you were actually the oldest to get in, so I'm the second oldest to get in. And I think we have a little bit of a bond because of your St. Francis connections, and between 82 and 86, there was that connection of turning from St. Francis to the University of New England. And for the ones that have recently graduated and, you know, are younger than I am, obviously. You are truly blessed to be playing in facilities that are the way they are for the last, well, I left in '86, so, but you are truly blessed to play in the facilities that you're playing in here today. Okay? So, and I'm sure, Ron, you know, we had the little practice gym, and I don't know what they're calling it now, but we had 4 dorms on campus and a couple of buildings. Nothing on this side of the road unless you had some social engagements on Thursday or Friday night, so we could stay on this side of the road. The hang has turned into something I don't even know anymore. Read that today walking around with my daughter and my wife. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Heather and to Kurt, because I know Heather's been here for a few years, but I've known Kurt since, you know, his St. Joseph's days. But what you have done here is truly remarkable, and as an alum, don't get to come back a lot. I've spent more years in Jersey than I did in Maine, but it is impressive. And in 2016, when I attended the Hall of Fame for Ronnie, who I recruited, and he got in and he passed away, I was blown away. It's amazing. We definitely need to talk about the blue field, but we'll get to that in a little bit later. But once again, thanks. My father passed away with cancer probably almost 19 years ago. And anytime I get a chance, and I've been fortunate to go into the Hall of Fame at Caldwell, that I like to bring up Jim Valvano, because I think what he started in his organization is phenomenal. And back in 1993, for those young ones that are here, Jim made a great speech in the ESPYs. And one of the things he said, time is very precious to me. He said, I don't know how much I have left, and I have some things that I'd like to say. Well, I'll go right on the record right now. I have a lot of time left, okay? But I do have a couple things that I'd like to say. I think when you get an award like this, it's very humbling. You certainly don't play the game of basketball, like Beth said, to become a Hall of Famer. You play it for the love of the game, and you hope that you're successful in it. But when you do get an award, I think you have a chance to reflect on where you were, where you are, and where you're going. And where I started from was just a small town, and if you're from Maine, you might know it even if you're out of state because it's a tourist town, Belgrade Lakes, and I graduated from Messalonsky High School. Okay, the town is 300 people in the winter and 3,000 people in the summer. It's small, and having an opportunity to go play college basketball was something that I always wanted to do. And to follow up with Ron, the gentleman that helped me come here was Jim Beaudry. And walking around UNE, if you said Jim Beaudry, he's everywhere. I was fortunate enough to be part of his last team in '82, '83, and then Larry Rio came and took over. But I want to thank my teammates in high school who helped me get here: Don Meter, Pete Fennelson, Tim and Tom Nutter were just phenomenal, and Dave Anicetti. And I say the last name Meter because thinking about this, I said, my God, the people that I have come across or have come across me between 74 and 90 before I left this great state is I had to be able to walk and chew gum. Because when you think of Thomas College, if you know Maine basketball, and Pine Tree basketball camp, and University of Southern Maine, and the Swish basketball camp, and even Hoop Mountain, which Steve Clifford's father had started up. But so these are the names that I had an opportunity to be coached by, mentored by, or actually coach and be counselors at their camp. And most of them are Hall of Famers in the state of Maine. Dick Meter, Dick Whitmore, Brendan Malone was assistant coach of Detroit Pistons who started Pine Tree basketball camp, Bob Brown, Tommy Maines, Art Dyer, Tony Hamlin, Frank Spencer, Mike Tate, Joe Russo, Carl Hendrickson, Mike McGee, good friend of mine, Steve Clifford. If you follow the NBA, Steve went to the University of Maine in Farmington, was up there, and we had a chance to compete against each other. And obviously, we served some time in the NBA. He'll be back. And Bob Brown's son, Brett, was the coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm sure he'll be back into it. But John Hapworth, Bob Brown, Bruce Meter, all these people have a way of impacting your life. So those names that I either were coached by, got to coach with, or even sit down and talk about my career, and I know Dick Whitmore was big on that. UNE, 82 to 86. I'm going to throw out some names that God bless them. Dr. Downs, Dr. Keneally, Dr. Beaupre, Carol LaRue, talked about Larry Rio, and Doug Biggs. Knew them all well. They were influential, whether it was in the academic classroom or socially or athletically. You know, the 93 games that I played in, that was all that we had scheduled. We were NAIA back then, so we were able to play 25, 25, 24 because Coach McPhee didn't want to come down, and Farmington had too much snow on the road, so we canceled the game. And then the transition between Jim's year and Larry's year was when we only played 19 games. But some of my teammates, Henry Beither, Chris Ryan, Todd Croto, Frank Duffy, Tim Burnham, you know, I thank you very, very much for sharing that gym floor with me and then traveling to Biddeford, Old Orchard, Biddeford Varsity Gym. Played Wells. That was Larry's great idea. We should go play St. Joe's with David Chadbourne. We should go to Wells. That's where, you know, he graduated from. It made sense, right? We should go down there and play down there. Dave's a good friend of mine. Now he's at Franklin Pierce. That whole 88, 89 team that I was part to coach and got a fortune, I think, in 07, 08, whatever, to get inducted to the Hall of Fame. I thank each and every one of you. Thanks, Jay, if you're watching. So I expect, I guess, now they'll etch Dean Johnson underneath Jay Corey's number that's retired. We can do that maybe. I think it's great that the past is brought in with the future and currently the present. If anything, I could tell the committee, don't forget about the past. We were here a long, long time. There are a lot of great student athletes out there, former players who made a lot of sacrifices. And if you coach, which I do, you always tell your players sacrifices is something you got to do. You got to have commitment, and you got to make a commitment to your program and your teammates. So don't forget the people that came before, all these great student athletes that are here today, and the ones that are recently that get to play on this beautiful, beautiful facilities here. You know, like Kurt said, I'm currently at Caldwell University. I'm the associate athletic director. I've been able to work with Bruce Hamburger, Dennis Gregory, Nick Del Tufo, Ed Ryan, Phil Dyer, John Michael Santulli, Glenn Carroll, phenomenal coaches that we've been able to share the basketball court. Recognizing at my table tonight, obviously my good friend Joe Scott is here, who we've spent almost 20 years together, traveling all over from Boston to Vegas to try to find players. The head coach, the assistant vice president, winningest coach in New Jersey, Mark Carino, had made the trip up. It's tough to get Jerseyans to come up here after Labor Day, okay? So, you know, that's something. To my family who's here today, I thank you very, very much. You've allowed me to do what I do. If you coach and if you're in athletic administration, there's no such thing as weekends. There's no such thing as holidays. Your student athletes seem to come first, so sometimes your wife and your daughter get put on the back burner, but I thank you very much, Christine. Caitlin, congratulations. We're going to be a granddad in February, so that'll be very, very nice. So congratulations. My mother, thank you for coming down with Joan. Greatly appreciate it. My sister Cindy and her husband Rich were there. Just like Beth said, I think earlier, you know, they watch every single game. They travel everywhere. The young student athletes in here, we had station wagons back in the 70s. So we'd load into station wagons and off we'd go to Mexico or Belfast or Livermore Falls or wherever Messalonsky was playing. And then I was close enough to play here. Of course, Dad had to find all the different gyms we played in because we didn't have one here on campus until 1989, which was great because I got to coach in that. But I thank my mother, and I obviously thank my father. That's where I am now. And now where am I going? Well, I'm going to get off this stage in a minute so you guys can have a cocktail here in a little bit. But I'll begin my 33rd year at Caldwell University doing what I really love to do. I've always said I don't have a job, I have a career. So I appreciate the time, which I think is important, which I started this speech off with, because time is very special to me and all the people that I encounter are very special to me. So I would like to once again thank each and every one of you that had a role, a small piece in pushing me along my journey. I am truly honored. God bless and good night.
One of the things I worried about before I accepted this, that I'd be the oldest speaker. I feel a lot better right now. I'm very excited to present Hall of Fame honors to two former cross-country athletes tonight. It is difficult to talk about them separately because both of them together played such an important role and an impact in women's cross-country at this university. Brittany Sorbello was an outstanding cross-country runner. She was instrumental to the success of the women's program from 2013 to 2016. She was a tenacious, competitive athlete that made her a force throughout New England. Her accomplishments speak for themselves. Brittany competed in 30 varsity races with 23 top 10 finishes and 7 victories. That's in your program, but people are not usually aware of the difficulty in cross country to achieve that. To win people go through their career without winning a college race. And this young lady won 7. Brittany was a 4-time all-conference selection. In 2014, was the Conference Runner of the Year. Brittany was also All-State selection with a 4th place finish at the State of Maine meet. And that was big for us in those days because at the State of Maine meet, we compete against Bates, Colby, and Bowdoin, which are incredible in cross country and in track and field. And to become an all-state person is an exceptionally opportunity. Brittany was a 2-time All-ECAC, placing 3rd and 7th, and the fields in those races were over 300 runners. Brittany's hard work and intensity carried to the classroom, earning a bachelor's and doctorate in pharmacy. In 2016, she was named Commonwealth Coast Conference Senior Scholar Athlete. She was also on the team that placed 9th in the NCAA Regionals, which is probably one of the best performances of any cross-country team. In the NCAA Regionals, there are close to 50 teams that compete. It is with great pleasure to present Hall of Fame recognition to Brittany Sorbello.
All right. Public speaking is definitely harder for me than running cross country, so. I want to thank those who nominated me for this award. I am beyond honored and excited to be receiving this. I'd like to start off by thanking my family. They've attended every single race of mine, and even if it meant going and staying in a hotel room for the night or giving up their weekends to watch our cross-country race, like, thank you. I appreciate it. I want to thank my coaches. Ron, you were, when I came for my recruit trip, I knew instantly that I wanted to come to UNE. You and the team, I felt like a family instantly. I loved every single one of my teammates. I enjoyed going to practice. It was, Ron, thank you for coaching such an amazing team. Also, we won like every single championship while he was our coach, so thank you. I want to also give a shout out to my high school cross country coach. I actually didn't run cross country in high school. I was a field hockey player. But he sparked my passion for running and made me also go to cross-country practice after field hockey practice. And while I hated the relentless training in high school, I wouldn't be up here getting this award if he didn't tell me to start running. Kurt, I really want to thank you. You were one of the few people on the athletic staff that actually went and watched a cross-country race, and I really, really appreciate it, and I know the team appreciated it. It means a lot to have someone on the athletic staff actually really, truly care about cross-country runners. Very few cross-country teams get the recognition they deserve, and here at UNE, I felt like we got recognition, and I really appreciate that. Last but not least, my teammates. I love you guys so much. You were my family. Like I said on my recruit trip, I knew instantly that I wanted to come here. Annalise, I got to meet you on my recruit trip. You and Chad, Trevor, Shane, Ben, everyone. I love you guys so much. You guys are lifelong friends. And some of you said you guys met your spouses here at UNE. I met my bestest friend ever. Deanna Richards here tonight. I love you so much. Thanks for all your support. When I was in the Portland campus, she would let me crash in her dorm in her bed with her, like us snuggled up in bed because we had to leave at 5 a.m. for a race. So she let me stay with her, and that we're real close, yeah. Yeah. Love all my, I just want to make sure I said Chad in my thing too, because he's probably watching this, and I want to make sure I got everyone okay. But yes, thank you so much for supporting me, it being the bestest friends I can ever imagine. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for inducting me into the Hall of Fame. I really appreciate it. And here's to Title IX and UNE Cross Country.
First, congratulations to everyone and all the inductees. It is such an honor to be able to be with your family and friends and being able to have this night together. I'm Danielle Collins. I'm the head field hockey coach. I get the lovely pleasure of inducting Beth Sullivan. Beth, this is more than deserved for you. When I came to UNE in 2013, you were starting your second season here as a junior. Beth was a transfer student from Stonehill College, so she came in here, and boy, was she the best transfer student that we could have had. At that point, though, Beth was already on her third college coach in 3 years. So she was looking to just have fun and play the game of field hockey. I'm not sure she knew what hit her when I showed up in 2013. I was now asking my players to pass fitness testing to get their jerseys to play. They were able to practice, but they needed to pass 2 tests to be able to get on the field. I thought Beth was gonna walk up to me and say, yeah, coach, screw you, see you later. But after, I remember her parents telling me as well, she's always been a great player, but she's never been forced to run. Her dad telling a story tonight, since she was this big, she's been the slowest person he's ever known. So they said, this is gonna be a challenge for her. And they laughed and said, she needs a little adversity. It may have taken Beth a few times to pass testing she needed, and Tavella learned this as well as being a coach for me one season. It came with a lot of slow counting. So in reality, Beth really never passed the tests. I just counted slow for her to actually pass and get her jersey. I don't know if you actually knew that, Beth. But she never stepped off the field after that. For those of you that don't know Beth, she is your carefree, fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants type of person. If it were up for her tonight, she would get this award and sit right back down. She asked if they removed the speaking portion for the inductees tonight. But when Beth took the field, she was a totally different person. She was our brick wall in the backfield. She would do anything to stop an attacker coming at her, whether it was with her field hockey skills or using her body a little bit more than she should have. Beth was going to get it done. I'm not sure how many times Beth was actually hurt during her season. She would just call up her dad and be like, what do I need to do to get back on the field? I'm pretty sure she had broken ankles all 3 years she was here. But she showed up ready to go every single game. Beth played in all 68 games here at UNE. started and played in every single one, and for the 2 years that I had her here, she never came off the field. Even though Beth was our top defensive player, she was our key hitter on corners, so that allowed her to rack up 12 goals and 5 assists during her time here. But the biggest goal that I'm sure she will never forget, and I certainly will not, was her penalty stroke in overtime against Endicott, giving us our first championship since 2010. Beth finished her career at UNE being named a third-team All-American, CCC Defensive Player back-to-back years, CCC First Team, New England All-Region First and Second Team, the NFHCA First Team. She did really leave her mark on this program. And even though times she would sneak a beer into her Dunkin' Donuts cup, especially after a championship game that we lost, I always compare, our defensive players to Beth. I want those type of players on our program and in our program. So as much as Beth, put me through hell here and there, I wouldn't have wanted it another way. Congratulations, Beth.
Thanks, Coach. That was kind of nice. So I want to start by congratulating the rest of the athletes being inducted tonight. My time here at UNE actually overlapped with a couple of these inductees, so I got to see some of the Nor'easters in action. Unfortunately, for a couple of them, I wasn't born yet, so I'm sorry I didn't get to see you play, but I'm sure this honor is you're more than deserving of this honor, so congratulations. I have a lot of people to thank for their role in getting me here tonight, but first I feel I should take a moment to thank the kind people of Stonehill College for suggesting that I consider transferring, and the coach at the time that suggested that I reach out to the Stonehill alum who was coaching at a small Division III school up in Maine. I ended up transferring to UNE in what I like to call the middle of my second freshman year. The UNE community was incredibly welcoming and made the transition to a new school as seamless as anyone could have asked for. My field hockey teammates played a big part in that and in making my UNE experience so memorable. They constantly challenged me on the field and made me a better field hockey player. They got me through fitness testing by physically pulling me across the finish line. And that slow counting that Coach mentioned. They stayed after practice to work on that dreaded penalty stroke that actually kind of worked out. Babysat me when I refused to admit the fact that I had a concussion and helped me through organic chemistry. I wouldn't have been the player that I am without them, and many of them are still my best friends today. I want to thank my parents for their endless support and patience throughout my athletic career, for the years of driving all around New England to get me to practices and games and cheering me on every step of the way. I know I wasn't always the most fun to be around after a tough loss. I've been told I had a bit of an attitude problem. So thank you for sticking it out through the ups and downs over the years. I've had the opportunity to play for some pretty amazing coaches throughout my athletic career. Each of them deserves some recognition for helping me become the best player and person that I could be. In the interest of time, I'll narrow that list down to just two, my first and my last. So I'll start by thanking my mom for introducing me and what felt like an entire town in Rhode Island to the game of field hockey. She started a youth program at the Boys and Girls Club, a middle school program, and coached the high school team for several years, including the 4 years that I played for Cumberland High. She taught me how to hold a stick and was responsible for almost every skill I learned from that point forward. She shared her endless knowledge of the game right up until she handed me off to my college coaches. And occasionally you could hear some helpful reminders from her corner of the fan section. Coach Collins arrived on the scene the beginning of my junior year, like she said, and you could see the immediate impact that her coaching had on the team, not just because we were all afraid of her. There's a reason that she was named CCC Coach of the Year on 5 separate occasions, I think. She made me a better field hockey player and has done an amazing job building the program here at UNE. I'm glad that I got to be a part of it and still love coming back each year to watch the current team and relive the glory days of playing on the big blue turf. I'm so grateful for the years that I've spent here and the honor of being included in this year's Hall of Fame class. So thank you, and go Nor'easters.
Well, I'm back, and it's a pleasure because it doesn't happen very often where you have 2 outstanding athletes in the same time period here at the university. Tiana Thomas-Valley was a member of the women's cross-country program from 2013 to 2016. She competed in 31 races at UNE with 24 top 10 finishes and 6 victories. Now, if you remember what I said earlier about Brittany, that's a total of, between both of them, 47 top 10 finishes and 13 victories throughout their college career. It's an amazing number. It really is. Tiana was one of the leaders that led this team to 4 consecutive conference titles, and both of them brought the air of winning to the cross-country team, because after they left, we won 3 more. So they set the standard, and that's a remarkable thing. Her dedication, hard work, and commitment to the program was the key to her success. She was a role model for young underclassmen to emulate. Tiana's practices were so intense, and at times we had to back off her training to make sure she wasn't going to get hurt. In 2015, she was recognized as a CCC Runner of the Year. Tiana was also a 4-time Commonwealth Coast Conference All-Star selection. She was also a 2-time All-State selection with a 5th and 4th place finish at the State of Maine meet. In 2014 and 15, she earned ECAC recognition with a 2nd place finish, and in 2015, 1st place finish among over 300 runners at that meet. In 2014, Tiana earned NCAA All-Region honors, placing 33rd out of 387 runners at the NCAA regionals. That day, the team placed 9th out of 45 teams, missing qualifying for the national championship by 3 spots. It is with great pride I present the UNE Athletics Hall of Fame Award to Tiana Thomas-Valley. Tiana.
Good job,
Tiana. Okay, so actually it was by 1 spot for the NCAA meet. Yeah, it's okay though. Okay. First and foremost, I wanted to thank the University of New England for this prestigious recognition. I also wanted to thank my family, friends, and the UNE Athletics Department for supporting me during my time here at UNE. It is truly an honor to be here this evening. My junior high self would be very shocked to see me standing here before you today. I say this because back when I first began my running journey, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Running was challenging for me, and I only stuck with it because my mom told me I had to do a sport in school. I had developed a love-hate relationship with running at that time. Sorry, I lost my spot. Okay. I looked forward to running up and down hills through the trails and through grassy fields during the cross-country season. However, when it came to running circles around an oval-shaped track, well, that was a different story. I remember after completing my freshman year of high school, I had asked my mom if I could skip running track my sophomore year and only run cross-country. She didn't seem to think it was a good idea at the time, and ultimately I found the courage to sign up once again for another season of indoor and outdoor track. I'm very glad I did stick with running year-round because sophomore year was really the turning point for me in my running, and something just clicked. I began to take it very seriously, and my race times began to show it year after year. If I hadn't stuck with running both track and cross country, I'm not certain I would have developed such a strong desire to run in college. Reflecting back, being a part of the cross country team here at UNE was one of the most memorable times of my life. I looked forward to traveling to cross country meets in the early morning, lacing up my shoes, and running my heart out at every race. I enjoyed the role as captain my senior year and what I could offer my teammates as a leader. I had a great coach, a group of wonderful teammates to work with, and most importantly, I met my husband, who I have been happily married for 3.5 months now. Running is and always will be a key component in my life. It has helped shape me into the person who I am today. I am very thankful to have spent my 4 years of college here and having been able to contribute to a part of UNE's history. UNE will forever hold a special place in my heart as it has led me to so many wonderful opportunities. I also want to congratulate all the former athletes here today on their acceptance into the UNE Hall of Fame. Thank you once again.
Good evening. My name is Heather Davis, and I'm the Director of Athletics here at UNE. What an evening we've had. As we kick off homecoming weekend, tonight we have celebrated some of the most accomplished student athletes in the history of their sport programs. As you can tell from each of their remarks and from those who presented them, this is a truly special group. On behalf of the University of New England, it is my honor to officially induct Dan Ozier, class of 2017 and 2022, Beth Suggs Carleton, class of 2013, Ron Dubuque, St. Francis College, class of 1961, Dean Johnson, class of 1986, Brittany Sorbello, class of 2017 and 2019, Beth Sullivan, class of 2015, and Tiana Thomas-Valley, class of 2017, into the UNE Varsity Club Athletics Hall of Fame. These 7 individuals join a select group in our Hall of Fame, and we are so proud of the rich tradition of success enjoyed by the athletics programs of St. Francis College, Westbrook College, and the University of New England. At this time, I would like to recognize other Hall of Fame members who are in attendance this evening. Please stand at this time for a round of applause. Before concluding tonight's ceremony, I would like to take a few moments to talk about UNE athletics. Last month, as the university welcomed a record number in its first-year class, our varsity sport rosters also reflect that same growth and vibrancy. In addition, our club sport teams and intramural offerings are also experiencing record participation and success. We are coming off a year in UNE athletics that saw 3 of our teams make it to a conference final. The year was highlighted by our men's hockey team winning the CCC title on its way to the national semifinal in the NCAA Division III Championship in Lake Placid. Additionally, our newest varsity sport, women's outdoor track and field, performed really well at the conference meet and saw 5 of those student athletes qualify for the NCAA regional event in only the second year of the program. While at the same time, our student athletes continue to perform exceptionally well in the classroom and within our community. The Nor'easters are making an impact outside the lines through such groups as Storming to Change, the Female Athlete Alliance, and the Junior Nor'easter Nation, just to name a few. Our student athletes truly embody the positive qualities of Division III athletics. As we conclude tonight's program, I would ask this year's Hall of Fame class to please remain in the room for photos and to get your plaques. Thank you all for being such an important part of our Nor'easter community, and I hope you enjoy the rest of homecoming weekend. Thank you and good night.